يا راغبا في كل علم نافع.
ينمو العلم ويتقدم بتقنياته ومجالاته، ومعه نطور أدواتنا في تقديم العلم الشرعي. أكاديمية
زاد أكاديمية ينبوعها صاف ليروي غلة الظمآن، ومكارم الأخلاق ندرسها معا، أدب وتربية على الإحسان. بشرى لنا زاد أكاديمية للعلم كالأزهار في البستان.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Continuing with Islamic Education Level 4 and the diseases of the heart, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cure our hearts, and continuing with the subject of the love of this worldly life as a disease of the heart. One of the dangers or the warnings that comes as a result of the love of this world, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned us from this in the Quran, and what is meant by that, as we heard, is not the thing that is instinct in the heart and in the life of the human beings, but the love of this worldly life that makes the person forgetful, make the person have diseases in his heart, not remembering death, not choosing the hereafter over this worldly life. So as a result of that, the love of this worldly life is always the key for every evil. If you think and you see every evil that get established on the face of earth, the root of it is the love of this worldly life versus the hereafter. Because a person has long hope in this life, not remembering the return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So every evil that got committed on the face of earth is because of as a result of that. The love of this worldly life is the reason why that people would disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's amazing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us and created this worldly life. And instead of people being grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they become busy with what Allah created for them to worship Him. So they are busy enjoying themselves and turning away from the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with what He created for them. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, "Badiru bil a'mal." Be in haste to do the good deeds. Why? Because fitanan ka qita'i al-layl mudlim. Fitan will happen, trials and tribulations like the big pieces or the pieces of the dark nights. يصبح الرجل مؤمنا ويمسي كافرا. A man would be in the morning a believer, the night comes he's a disbeliever. أو يمسي مؤمنا ويصبح كافرا, or nighttime he's a believer, in the morning he's a disbeliever. Why is that? يبيع دينه بعرض من الدنيا. He sells his religion, and in return he gets some apparent things of this worldly life. That makes the person fall into kufr wal-'iyadhu billah, fall into disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the love of this worldly life that is so short and has no benefit to it compared to the hereafter, unless it's for the sake of Allah. Also the ghafla, the forgetfulness in the heart, to be away from dar al-akhirah, from the hereafter, and therefore a person would not fulfill the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way it ought to be. Because as one of the narrations of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, "Man ahabba dunyah adarra bi-akhirati." Whoever loves this worldly life, he would harm his hereafter. وَمَنْ أَحَبَّ أَخِرَتَهُ أَضَرَّ بِدُنْيَا. And whoever loves the hereafter, this might harm his worldly life. فَآثِرُ مَا يَبْقَى عَلَى مَا يَفْنَى. So choose what stays forever over what goes away. And this is the choice and this is the test. You believe in the hereafter, it's the everlasting life. Choose the everlasting one over this temporary one. And if you do that, you won't lose the goodness of this life. You would actually enjoy the real life of this world, the life of being close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the life of being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, one of the things that it's from the corruption as a result of the love of the worldly matter is it takes away from the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the heart. If the heart is overpowered with the love of this worldly life and the desires and so on, it takes away the heart from the love of Allah. Because the heart's supposed to be occupied with the love of Allah and the worship of Allah. So it's either or. Because this heart is a container, you cannot put two opposite things in the same container. You cannot drink good water in a cup unless you clean it. If it's contaminated with something that is impure, you won't be able to drink it. That's why the sweetness of al-Iman, when many do not have it in their hearts because they already corrupted the container with things that is not sweet, and one of which is the love of this world versus the hereafter. And therefore, the corruption that happens is the heart loses the joy as a result of making remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the nutrition of the soul when a person makes remembrance of Allah. So when someone's body is sick and he's not able to enjoy food because he's sick, physically sick, the same thing as one of the early generations of Islam, he said, the heart when it's sick, having diseases in it, is not able to taste the nutrition of the heart, which is the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of the love of this worldly life. One of the corruption that happens as a result of the love of this worldly life, the constant distress and miseries, and a person always feel that they are poor and in need and confused and their matters are dispersed. There's a beautiful hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that shows that a way of life to cure our hearts from all kinds of diseases of the heart, and one of which the love of this worldly life. Man kanat al-akhiratu hammahu. Whoever the hereafter is his concern. In one of the narrations, man asbah. Whoever wakes up in the morning and the hereafter is his concern. How to enter the Jannah of Allah, how to be saved from the hellfire, how to seek the pleasure of Allah. What happened to that person in that day in his life? جَعَلَ اللَّهُ غِنَاهُ فِي قَلْبِهِ. First thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will enrich his heart, make him rich. That means he's in no need of anyone. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala جَمَعَ لَهُ شَمْلَهُ, will bring his affairs together. And وَأَتَتْهُ الدُّنْيَا وَهِيَ رَاغِمَةٌ, and the dunya, the worldly life, will come to him even if it's against against what he wants, against what it wants, comes to him. And on the other side, وَمَنْ كَانَتِ الدُّنْيَا هَمَّةٌ, whoever the dunya is his concern, his worldly life is his concern, and this is what he's sad and happy about and so on, جَعَلَ اللَّهُ فَقْرَهُ بَيْنَ عَيْنَيْهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make his poverty between his eyes. That means anytime he look, he sees himself poor and in need. وَفَرَّقَ عَلَيْهِ شَمْلَهُ, and he would disperse his affairs. Many different things, he can get things done. وَلَمْ يَأْتِهِ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَا قُدِّرَ لَهُ, and only comes to him from the worldly matter what Allah decreed for him. He's not going to add anything. He's not going to get more rich because he's concerned about this worldly life. So whoever really understands this hadith and act upon it, he is successful in this life and in the hereafter. Also, it takes away the person from the remembrance of Allah. This is a severe corruption to the heart, as we mentioned, because of the heart is busy with the love of this world. And وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, the end of one's life in a bad way. Su'ul khatimah, the bad ending of one's life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. Because su'ul khatimah, or the bad ending of one's life, why is that important? Because إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالْخَوَاتِيمِ, as the Prophet ﷺ said, deeds are by the ending of it. So we have to have our hearts concerned about that, how our life will end. And for the bad ending of one's life, there are means that people would allow themselves to take these means to lead them to the bad ending of their life. One of which is to be so much indulged into this worldly matter and seeking it and having the stinginess and the greed upon it and turning away from the hereafter. And therefore a person will be having this audacity to commit sins and to oppose the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and things like this. So as a result of that, the heart becomes polluted and the heart becomes fully under control of one's desire. And then, the maw'idah, the admonition doesn't benefit. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from all diseases of the heart and to make us love the hereafter more than we have the love of this world, and to make us steadfast upon the deen of Allah. We'll continue inshallah ta'ala next time with more of the subject of the love of this worldly life. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
يا راغبا في كل علم نافع.
ينمو العلم ويتقدم بتقنياته ومجالاته، ومعه نطور أدواتنا في تقديم العلم الشرعي. أكاديمية زاد
أكاديمية ينبوعها صاف ليروي غلة الظمآن. مكارم الأخلاق ندرسها معا، أدب وتربية على الإحسان. بشرى لنا زاد أكاديمية للعلم كالأزهار في البستان.